Hey everybody, it's Cam with my March TBR. I am recording this one directly after I recorded the February roundup. And as I mentioned in that one, I'm going to probably have to do some more of these videos where I'm just going to pump out one after the other whenever I get a chance. Now that I am back to work full time and am, getting pretty busy. My son's soccer season starts officially this weekend. We did have a tournament last weekend. His team went 1-1-1. Which for those of you Americans who are not familiar with soccer, you can have ties as well. So we won one, lost one, and tied one. It was fun. Their first game, they just looked terrible. And then second game, they won, I think they won 9-1 after losing 7-1, and then tied up at 4-4 for that final one. So it was a fun weekend. They got to play at Boise State, and they were really excited about that. If for those of you who are unaware, which probably most of you, Boise State is famous for their blue turf on their stadium, and so it was kind of fun getting to have the kids get to play soccer on that blue turf. Okay, let's get straight to my March TBR. As I mentioned in my February roundup, I missed out on a bunch of books because of going back to work and then running the excavator instead of running my tractor and composter. This week, I finally started composting, so I will have plenty of time to, get all my reading done. Hopefully, I can get somewhere between 8 and 10 books a month done from here on out. And, as I mentioned in my last video, my only real problem is going to be finding time to record and edit. So let's go ahead and talk about what I'm going to read in March. So I'm going to finish up that third audiobook / reading of the Sun Eater series. I'm 70% in, so I'll actually get my rating in on that one here coming up in the next day or two. And I'm also, as I record this day, which is the 28th of February, I'm going to actually have my MD Presley Rites of Passage book finished as well. I've only got a little bit left in that one. So I plan on first off actually reading Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. That one was supposed to be a February one. That'll be the first book of March that I will get into. Then I will be reading City of Stardust by E.L. Lyons. That was supposed to be a February one as well. We'll get to that one here in March. And then the last one that I'm sure of, the last one of those February books will be Rewrite the Storm by Devin Madsen. That one is one that you can also see an old podcast episode of. Her book got picked up by Orbit while it was still a SPIFBO book back, I think it was either 3 or 4. And I read it then. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to reread it now. Apparently, there was quite a bit of change done through that Orbit acquisition. Even like a couple of major events change between the self-published version and Orbits. So I'm excited to start doing that one. That one's kind of got an Eastern, like Horse Warrior Society flair to it. Then that'll be those three. When Adrian Gibson is able to get the arcs for Mushroom Blues out, I will get that at some point. It's still scheduled to come out the middle of March, I believe. So hopefully, if he can get me an arc for that, I'll get it read. So after those 3/4, whenever I get Mushroom Blues, the first book that I was planning on reading for March, that will be now my 4th or 5th book of March, is going to be The Voice of War by Zach Argyle. He is, of course, the husband of Bookborn, the BookTube channel that is, very, very famous. And I actually am excited to read this one. This was a suggestion after I talked about how I wanted to have more of a long-term stable married couple where the relationship is good. And I was told that this is a Voice of War has that in that book. So I'm excited to read that one. Then I'll go back to what sounds like a bit of a sci-fi book with The Hand of God by Yuval. Jesus Christ, I can't say the name. By Yuval Kardov. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. So that'll be books either 4 and 5 or 5 and 6. Then I'm going to read my first Anna Smith Spark book, A Woman of the Sword. This is another one of those where in some ways it's kind of crazy that I've never read any of her books before, because she is also one of those, big grimdark authors. And I think she actually has a book that just came out with Michael R. Fletcher as well, so they've teamed up. But I was told that A Woman of the Sword would be a good entry point if I didn't want to read, her original first trilogy, which was very, very grimdark. And I think that at the moment I'm just not feeling quite as grimdark as I have in the past. So I'm excited to read this book by her and to, finally read a book by Anna Smith Spark, who, as I've mentioned, I've been aware of for years now. And kind of like Michael R. Fletcher, I don't know why I've never read any of her books in the past when I've only heard good things. So that will be book either 6 or 7 for me. I'm guaranteeing that I should be able to get through those. After that, I'm planning on reading Exile by Martin Owton, Owton. This is another of the more like grimdark ones. I actually had planned on doing a book review of this one and reading this book way back when I had the podcast. And then right about the time he sent me that book is when I stopped putting out new episodes. And he reached out to me not too long ago and said, hey, did you ever end up reading that book? I realized I hadn't. I still had the copy of it. So I'm going to read Exile by Martin Owton. Like I said, it's more of a medieval style, darker book from what I'm aware of. Then after that, I'm going to read Wages of Sin by Harry Turtledove. This is an alternative history book. Now, I'm sprinkling in comments and mentions of how much I love alternative history books throughout different episodes. Big fan. I've mentioned it more than once. 73 alternative history books, but somehow I've never read Harry Turtledove, who might be the biggest name in alternative history. Big fan of Taylor Anderson, S.M. Stirling, of course, David Drake and Eric Flint, both of whom have died in the last couple of years, and who used to work a bit with S.M. Stirling, who, in addition to his own series, used to do outlines for other stuff as well. So I kind of felt like, hey, maybe I should, do a Turtledove as well. At some point, I plan on doing a big thing on alternative history as a genre and, talking about the various authors and stuff. This one is a standalone novel, so it seemed like a good point to get into the Harry Turtledove books. His are a lot of like Civil War type stuff where like in some cases where the South won the war or, was able to remain independent, things like that. So I think that this one is going to be along those lines as well. And so excited to finally read a Harry Turtledove book. And, I figured I better read at least one of them before I eventually get into doing the alternative history stuff. After that, now we're getting into like 8-9 range. So, like getting into a little bit farther. I plan on starting the Dungeon Crawler Carl stuff. Now, it is a progression fantasy series, but it's kind of like one of the biggest ones at this point. And it's just basically a phenomenon. And I've heard great things, even from some people who, like me, generally don't do a lot of progression fantasy. And I figure, I probably should get a taste of one of the biggest indie, progression fantasy series anywhere at this point. So I'm going to do that. And if we make it any farther than that, which I'm either at 8 or 9, depending on, if I end up get that Mushroom Blues, then what I plan on doing is reading the second book in the Way of Adan trilogy. I didn't do that because I got into the Empire of Silence and the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio. Because right after I finished The Way of Adan, that's when I had to go back to work and run the excavator. And so when I normally would have, when I love a book that much, I would have gone back and read the second one of that, of the Adan trilogy. I ended up, getting that Christopher Rocchio stuff because of the audiobook availability, since I had those audiobooks. So if I make it past the Dungeon Crawler Carl, then I will read the second and maybe third book of the Way of Adan series. One thing I mentioned last year, I am trying to make sure I make a conscious effort to let myself read those second, third, however many books of a series if I really enjoy them. I noticed that last year it really helped me avoid burnout, where I was sometimes worried about just making sure I had content in the past while I was doing the podcast. The format of it, just since I was doing spoiler-free first episodes only, I made sure that I was always reading first books, and in some cases I was reading as many as 50 to 60 first books in a series, and almost never going back and reading, second or third ones while I was doing the podcast. But because of this visual medium, I found that, I can sprinkle in random episodes that actually get watched, sometimes far more often than my book review episodes do, of like the ones that just came out, for example, my favorite fantasy tropes and things like that I just didn't really feel like worked very well in the audio only medium, and for some reason, seem to do much, much better when I am, with YouTube. So I'm going to try and finish off that Evidan trilogy sometime here not too long. And then, I'll figure out where we go from there. I do kind of feel like I should apologize where I've been a little bit of rambling here. Putting together 2 episodes back to back, I didn't spend as much time as I should have making sure I printed things out. I was also trying to make sure that I need to go pick my kids up on time here. So I'm running up on the end of that time. So I'll list off the books again real quick. So we'll do Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill as the first book. Then it will be City of Stardust by E.L. Lyon. And then we'll finish up what should have been February's TBR with We Ride the Storm by Devin Madsen. Then after that, we will have Voice of War by Zach Argyle, The Hand of God by Yuval Kordov, if I'm saying that correctly. Then we'll do A Woman of the Sword by Anna Smith Spark, Wages of Sin by Harry Turtledove, Exile by Martin Outen, and then if I have more time, I will do the second and third books of the Way of Edan series by Philip Chase. Thanks for putting up with me and my little bit of rambling out of order today, and hopefully March will be a much more settled month since I know what I'm doing work-wise, and I should have plenty of time to do my reading. Thank you everyone who has, subscribed, who's watching these videos, who is commenting, and it makes it all just worthwhile for me. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.